Well, welcome back to the True Play Check-in series, which is really just our chance to share the conversations we're having with our friends and colleagues about True Play and about Anji Play. And it's also just this great opportunity to learn more about some incredible people's important work. I'm your co-host, Jesse Cafino. I'm co-director of the True Play Foundation.
And I'm Christina Tapia. I'm the Director of Global Practice for Anji Education. For more information about our work, you can visit www.anjiplay.com or find us on any of the major social media platforms. And during our conversation with Dr. Jones today, if you have any questions or comments or feedback about what we're talking about, enter them in the comments and we'll do our best to get to them if we have time.
And we're just really thrilled to be joined again by Dr. Denisha Jones. Dr. Jones is director of the Art of Teaching program at Sarah Lawrence College. She's co-director of Defending the Early Years, which is just an incredible organization, and we encourage you to check it out and support them. And she's recently editor of Black Lives Matter at School, and she contributed a chapter to the commodification of American education, persistent threats and paths forward. So buy those books. So Denisha, it's just so wonderful to see you again. I know you've had a busy summer and you're finally back in the classroom with your students. So how's that been to transition back to being with people?
It's been great. So thank you again for having me. And yeah, summer was crazy and then traveling. And, the first day I went up Friday before classes started to kind of like check out the space. And that was the first time I have a new commute now because I bought a house a little far away. And as much as I don't like the commute, I felt so good to be back in there getting that room ready, right? So we took down all the old, Post-it papers and around and projects, and we took it all out and we made sure the chairs were working. And I was like, wow, I'm really excited. So yeah, I go up now. I'm teaching a class on Tuesday and another on Wednesday and Thursday. And it's great. I mean, we're a small group on Wednesday, so we're all in the room. It's a pretty good sized room with windows and AC, and we're all masked. And supposedly everyone's vaccinated. I think there's some types of exemption, but mostly everyone is. And it's great just to see people back in person. Although now I don't recognize anyone because I saw them all on Zoom before to get into the class, and I saw their faces, and now they got this mask on. And like one girl pulled down her mask to drink water, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that's what you look like. So there's that part, and it's been great. And so those were new students, my returning second years who did not spend their whole first year of grad school on campus because of COVID. We're really excited to be back. So I have them on Thursday, and we're in a bigger room because I took in more undergrad students. But it's still been great. Like I was writing on the smart board. I was like figuring out how to set up the AV, and I was like, this is so much better. Something about what I did last year, which was this, even though I was standing, I did not feel like I was really teaching. I just never, I bought a standing desk and everything, and I still didn't feel it. But the minute I walked into that room, and even if I sat in a chair and started going with them, it's just great being back in person. And it's tough, and I know people are scared, and I'm in a controlled environment with adults who all are masked by requirement, and who I would say 99% of our students are vaccinated. There is a medical or religious exemption, and we don't know who, of course, has gotten that, but I feel safe, unlike my colleagues in New York City who return to school today. They're not as safe because we don't know if every person over 12 is vaccinated, and it's in their buildings are not as ventilated as a college campus. And so my heart goes out to them, and I hope that they remain safe. But I know for most teachers, we're desperate to get back into the space with people we work with, right?
It's so interesting, working with early educators, young children. A lot of early educators, they've been in the classroom pretty much I feel like there's maybe like a 2-week hiatus when things first started to seem really sort of intense at the beginning of the pandemic in the United States. And they were quickly back in there. And I think they're continuing to kind of figure things out. I would just maybe not echo exactly what you were saying. You were saying a lot of people were vaccinated. I'm going to kind of double down and say, please get vaccinated. There's a lot of reasons to have doubts about, the systems of how medicine is practiced in this country, but really, it's a really important thing that you can do right now. And so you have doubts, like find information. Yeah.
Yeah. And after, I was in Tijuana for a week, and, there are people out there who would give anything for the vaccine, right? There are, thousands and thousands of migrants from a bunch of different countries who are still in Mexico, and they don't have it, right? And so, we just have to remember, yeah, I get it. I teach a whole unit on, the history of institutional review board and medical ethics and why we have all of these things and the horrible things that have been done in the name of science. And so I get the fear, but, a vaccine being offered to millions of people to help stem a a killer pandemic is not one of those things, right? I think we need to understand and recognize the fear, but also do everything that we can. And, you know, I'm isolated up here. I live alone right now, but it's not for me. It's to protect the other people I come into contact with. You know, I have a colleague who has 2 kids under the age of 12 at home. Like it's a risk she takes every day to leave the house to be around other people who don't realize that them getting vaccinated is protecting her and her children, right? Who don't have a option right now. And we hope that the science will come through and younger kids will be able to get vaccinated as well too. I have a colleague who enrolled her son in a medical study to try out the vaccine on younger kids. And that's been great because he's getting vaccinated and she's contributing to the science to make sure that vaccines work for younger children. So.
And I just know that we oftentimes separate out teaching, learning, and sort of care and sort of the duty of care. And I think as educators, certainly as a parent, the more we can do to provide that safety for our children, for our students, for the people in our community, I think the more we're living out that sort of, I think like a responsibility to provide love and safety and care for the people that we come into contact with.
The care is so
I'm really,
crucial. I don't think a lot of people think about caring as part of the work, right? But it's like, it's part of it, right? We have to care for one another in this society and we've lost sight of that.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the
and I
foundation
think
of
that
everything, right? It's what everything is built up on. If you don't have that relationship, if you don't have that care, you can try to do a lot of other amazing things, but ultimately it's not going to be as successful as if you're really invested in the people that you're around and you're working with.
Yeah.
And I think similarly, as we think about how for a long time academics, or in recent times, maybe for a long time, have been pushing down onto younger and younger children. And a lot of your work, a lot of our work is about how we kind of push play up, you know, push that sort of liberatory idea of learners as much as possible guiding their own learning. I think also thinking about how primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, professors also have that role of care, that it's not just the people that are educating the youngest children. That in most, I think, healthy learning environments, we care for each other, right?
Or we try to. I think I've been thinking about that a lot. How do you show care with the adults that you teach and work with? And so, you know, my students think I'm crazy, but I'm always like, if you're stressed in my class, you're doing it wrong. Come talk to me. This is like a stress-free environment. Like I am not stressed and I don't want you stressed. Like we are on a learning journey together, but it should not be stressful. It should be exciting. It should be interesting. But if you're feeling stressed, let's work on it. Because I don't need you here. I don't want to be adding stress to your life right now. Life is stressful enough without going to college and trying to get a degree and better your life. So how can I de-stress that? Like you're going to get the work done. You're going to do okay. Let's not make that the number one worry. Let's make sure you get out of this course something that's going to mean something to you and help you down the line. And so I know they think they're not buying it right now. Oh, she's just saying that. No, I'm not just saying that. I'm being very honest. Like if I feel it's too stressful, if I'm getting stressed, I'm going to be like, all right, guys, this is too much. Like what can we do to like change our stress level right now? Right now, my other school that I teach online classes at, they're in the middle of a cyber attack. So nothing, we got access to no email, no systems, no nothing right now. So don't stress, guys. We'll work on it. Like we'll handle it. You know, it always happens. And so I think it's easier, I think, as you get older and you're living through these things to take that attitude, but it's harder for younger people who are so eager to get out into the world and make their mark to remember that, you know, stress is not something that you want to take with you. And so how do you de-stress and to show that and to model that? And so I'm hoping to really do that with my students this semester.
Now, we mentioned at the beginning of this book, Black Lives Matter at School, that you co-edited with Jesse Hagopian. Is that the right pronunciation?
Yes.
Can you share a little bit more, since you published it, the impact it's been having, what kind of feedback you've been getting? What's that been like?
Yeah, so it's just been amazing to work. Every year we've been working with all these educators across the country, and they're the ones who actually do Black Lives Matter at school, right? I don't even do it as much as they do because I don't teach in a K through 12 environment, but it's really K through 12 teachers, pre-K, let me break that up because, you know, we have some pre-K teachers, but those in the school setting who, since we started in 2017, have been like organizing, meeting locally with their communities and nationally, and just planning what was known first as a week of action in February to really highlight the principles of the movement, to teach the lessons, to put forth the demands. And every year they've just been taking that work on more and more. And so, I reached out to Jesse because I know he's written a few books that we should document the work, right? So yeah, we co-edited it, but there are over 30 contributors, most of them deeply involved in the movement in their cities, in their homes, and that's where the work is done. So it's been really gratifying to share and amplify their voices, the student voices. Jesse came through and got a whole section of student voices interviews that he did with multiple students so that their voices can be in. And it's been great to see it going. I think now nationally, we are thinking about how do we evolve as an organization and continue to serve the teachers that we work with. How do we support the local teachers on the ground who are doing this work? I know in cities, they're thinking about, New York City came through last year with a virtual, week of action because of the way things were. But every meeting, we had over 90 people attending virtual meetings after teaching all day virtually, coming to our meeting to talk about the week of action.
That's incredible.
So, yeah, I think that's what's been moving me so much. And that's what I was sharing with my students. I asked them, what excites them about education and what scares them. And what excites me is that I see teachers who are tired and battered down and doing the best they can in this horrible environment right now of, pandemics and attacks on how we teach and teaching the truth, but they're still showing up every day and they're moving forward. And I think that's the key, that if you're invested in this from a caring position, from a wanting to change the world position, then you're going to keep fighting as if you're just in to do your job. And then all of these things get in the way, right? And so, I think we're still going to see a lot of people moving forward this year. We're going to see a lot of pushback. Some of the language in these states that are banning critical race theory have actually used the words Black Lives Matter at school. So I believe in Iowa, that law that was passed included that phrase. Other states are including it. So as we get more traction and we get, both National Teachers Union are now endorsing the week of action, right? We're going to continue to see the pushback as people don't understand that what we're really trying to do is affirm Black children's lives in school so that they can succeed, right? We just saw recently another report on ethnic studies shows that when children are taught these things about their history, they do well in school. And we know that, and that's all we want, right? But we're up against so many people who think we're trying to do something sinister when actually we're just trying to improve educational experiences, not even outcomes, but the educational experiences of all children, right?
I mean, I think what's super interesting about that, though, is like you're getting so much pushback because your message is getting out there. Like you are like making an impact in that space. And, you're instead of like these conversations happening behind closed doors, or if that at all, like it's out in the open now. It's forcing people to grapple with these really important issues that, they've been trying to avoid for so long. So just that's really commendable that you and, all the people that you're working with have been able to make such a statement that states are coming back with like, oh no, I don't know about this. Like you're forcing them to be a part of a conversation that they weren't a part of before. So
yeah, it's hard because the narrative is getting twisted in a lot of it, the work. So how do we maintain? So some things, we're just not going to respond to, right? Like, obviously people who are uneducated is trying to derail what we're doing. And I do admit that there's probably a large amount of parents who are they don't know what this is, right? Black and white parents. Like I had Black educators at a school who were like, they thought Black Lives Matter school meant teaching 4-year-olds about police brutality. No, that's not what this is about. So there's a lot of education as a whole, because this is what I'm calling contemporary Black cultural knowledge. Like these guiding principles aren't something that's always been taught, but that is therein lies in the problem. When I ask my students or even teachers, what does it mean to teach for Black joy? They go blank. They don't know what that means because they've never learned that. They've learned Black pain, Black struggle, Black inferiority. They've gotten a whole bunch of that. And then the few sprinkle heroes to kind of central. But what we've even learned from that research, right? One of my colleagues, Ashley Woodson, did this amazing research on master narratives, right? And so when you only teach Black people about like Dr. King and Rosa Parks, they tend to not be able to see themselves in those persons, right? And I remember feeling that way. And I was like, oh, wow, that's exactly right. Like, you're like, I can't be this person, this great leader. I don't have what it takes. We don't talk about ordinary great people, ordinary Black people who do amazing things, and we don't give you anything to aspire to. So that's what a lot of this work is. And so for some people, you don't understand that. So by all means, let us educate you. Let's talk about it. Let's have a dialogue. Let's answer those questions. But if you're just outright being an obstacle because you don't care about Black children in school and you don't see the need to change what's happening to them in school, well, that's different, right? I can't really deal with those people. We have to deal with obstacles in a way different than we deal with detours, right? People who are just, they don't understand. And I think we can convince those parents, right? This is beneficial for all children, right? Like your kids don't invest invest in this now, these are the kids who grow up and they do something, horrible, like they wear blackface or they get made a video of them chanting the N-word, right? These are things we're trying to eliminate if we attend to it when they're young and we get them to understand that. And so I think we can do a lot of more work that way, but we definitely need to just keep inviting people to come see what it's all about and understand that there's nothing sinister in what we're doing unless you think, Black joy is sinister, then that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a different conversation though.
And I think that, it also raises this question of, do we generally see joy as not as sinister, but like, are we centering joy generally, right? So I think there's something kind of infectious and embracing about joy. So if you have Black children experiencing joy, other children see that and they want to be a part of that, right? Like, I see value in that. Like, I see value, like you have value, you have something that's meaningful. I want to know more about that. I want to be a part of that. And because, you get the pushback I've heard from people who like just don't want to admit history, right? They don't want to take a clear-eyed look at history and admit how it's different than what has always been taught. But then I think there is maybe some pushback, which is we don't want to give up some of the power we have over children or over learners or over a group of people, right? Like we don't want to empower them to lead their own learning, or we don't want to hear them and see them and value them. And, not to say that there's a parallel, but I think in our work generally, we do get pushbacks from like, oh, wait, like if we're not teaching them, if we're not focusing in on the deficits, right? If we're not trying to fix whatever we perceive as being wrong, like what's our job? What's our role? And so there's like a kind of a threat, I think, in that kind of giving children that space to have that joy. And I mean, in particular, for Black and brown children, certainly in this country, it's been ruthlessly stripped away. Yeah,
and it comes from a lot of the systems in place that are designed for that, right? So thinking about like colonial systems that were put in place to strip certain people of that joy, of that, ability to lead life on their own terms, capitalist systems that do that, racist systems, patriarchal, right? They're all in place and they all kind of filter in that way too. But I think what you said, Jesse, that's so key is like the role. And this is what I'm realizing right now. I've been preparing teachers for 18 years now, right? But the role, if I'm asking you to lead with play and to let play be the vehicle, which it is, the vehicle for which children learn, your role then is not what I'm telling. It's not about crafting objectives and writing lesson plans, right? And assessment, it is those, but it's different, right? And so I think we who are pushing play as pedagogy and play as the natural way of learning need to really think about, okay, well then how does the role of the teacher shift? And how do we prepare them for that shift? Because there is a role for teachers to play. I saw it in Anji, right? I see it in play-based programs all the time, but it's not the traditional role of the teacher that's getting filtered down in a lot of early childhood programs, right? The idea that without you, the child's not going to flourish. And that is something we need to like, I am actually like, no, like the child is going to be okay. You can come in and as the educator, document the learning and show what's happening and even provide some scaffolding if needed, right? But it's mainly like, how do you not interfere with already what's naturally progressing? And how do you explain to others what the child is naturally able to do on their own? I think that's how, and so how do we shift that role in that thinking? And I think, that's definitely what I'm exploring, working with some colleagues in Pittsburgh who are doing some play with elementary school teachers. Like, how does your role then shift, right? When you are stepping back, right? That whole idea of like, hands down, mouth closed, eyes open, heart open, then what are you doing, right? And how do you tap in to what you are doing? And how do you use what you're feeling and what you're supposed to be doing to guide the rest of your work? And so I'm really excited to keep exploring that with teachers who are doing it, because I think it's essential to say that there is a role for you to play. It's different and it's important that you understand it.
I think, our work as well, when we're communicating that hands down, that mouth closed, as you're saying, that like ears, eyes, heart open, like that's the first step, right? That's how you figure out what you should be doing. Because if you don't start there, then you're not responding to where a child truly is. And when you do that, you see, like when you start to see children, you start to see them joyously taking risks, supporting each other, then your responses are much more, they're more responsive. I mean, you're basing what you're doing on where a child is. You're seeing and hearing them and valuing who they are before valuing where you want them to be in some sense. I mean, it's a different power dynamic. It's a different relationship.
It is, and I think that's the hardest part because we fill teachers to come in with all this other preconceived stuff and not let them. That's one of the things I love being at Sarah Lawrence, because they've always had this position at the Art of Teaching using the descriptive review process that you have to start by getting to know the child. So like our first year semester students, the first year, they're taking observation and documentation, and they're learning how to really observe children and write this descriptive review, because that is everything, right? And so then they're in emergent curriculum with me, and it's like, okay, how do we take what we're seeing and learning and observing about children and create curriculum that has multiple entry points, that is for all children, right? And then also think about the standards and the requirements. Like, it's a lot, right? We're asking teachers to do so much, but I think it's more important than just saying, just go out there, teach the standard. No, you're teaching children. You're in a caring relationship with children. That needs to be central, and we center children in everything that we do. But it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge because I'm asking you to take these values that we hold so deeply and bring them into an environment that doesn't always value the same values, and somehow still bring in the joy and still be happy, and still it's not as easy as people think it is, but it's worth it. And I think that our alumni tell us that. And our colleagues tell us that it's worth it to stay grounded in the work. It's just a challenge.
Christina, is there anything you wanted to?
I mean, I was just gonna like I was just thinking about like what you two were saying, and like I think a misunderstanding is of a lot of what we're pushing for is like stepping back doesn't mean that you're not present, right? And so I was thinking about your like observation class, Denisha, like your teachers are learning that, like just because you're not directly involved in the children's play doesn't mean that you're not deeply curious or wanting to know more, or you're not present. It's not like it's not like it's, I hate to say this, a lot of the like checked out teachers at recess. That's not what we're talking about, right? Like, it's not like, okay, I finally have a minute to breathe. It's no, like, this is when the bulk of your work actually starts. When the children are playing, you're there, you're deeply curious about what they're doing, deeply curious about like their thinking process, and really, spending your time trying to better understand them. And I think that if we all started any relationship from that part of being like deeply curious about the other person, we'd be in a much better place for a lot of things, right? Like just seeing, I think it also has to do with like humanizing children, because I think so much of it is like, oh, they're just these little people. They are empty vessels to be filled up. I think most people know not to say that, but like by our actions, we're still kind of like, responding to that idea. And so,
yeah, I mean, if you think about first day of school stuff, it's all about, how much time is devoted to just getting to know children, right? So like, you would think the whole first week, the whole first month would be just like getting to know children, but it's not. It's introducing them to rules and routines and processes and expectations, right? And that doesn't tell me that you honor the children and who they are, right? It's about getting children to conform to your expectations of school, right? That's what we're doing so much in schooling. And I don't think we have honest conversations about that, because we're afraid if we don't do that, then kids will just run amok. And I'm like, yeah, well, when kids are running amok, they're actually learning the most, right? They're doing what they want to do, they're exploring, they're doing experiments, they're curious, they're being driven by some really unique, innate curiosity that's driving all that. And that's what we want to capitalize on. But in our systems, in our way of thinking, no, we need to control it. If we're not controlling them, then how do we know what's happening is actually happening? So it's a lot deeper. And I think, I'm unfortunate I'm in a space where I have the time to really explore that with the students, and they want to break down those systems and understand that better. And I've been in other situations where that's not the case. It's like, no, just meet the standards and keep it moving. And so it's really nice, but it's sad because not everybody gets that, right? Not everybody gets this space where we're going to deconstruct all these ideas and myths and narratives about what children are, who they are, and who they, who we think they are, what we think they should be doing, and then who they really are and what they want to be doing. Right? That's really,
and I think that's something that's interesting though too. I don't think it has to be an either or if you are following the children's lead. So like if you are trying to make children conform to a schedule, of course it's going to be an uphill battle and you're not going to really be able to understand them. But I'm thinking about like the programs that really are meeting the children's needs. It's like, okay, like here's a big chunk of time to play. And then because there's so much time to play, when we say, hey, we're going to go inside and like, like have a conversation about something. It's not like, oh man, it's like, oh, okay, like I'm ready to go in. Like all my needs have been like to play have been satisfied and now I can go in. And so it's also just thinking about like, how are we creating these schedules and routines and expectations for children? Because if they really are coming back to like meeting them where they are, knowing more about them, then that's a very different situation than most schools that we go into. It's like, okay, it's 8:15, that means we have to be at circle time, or it's like 8:20, we have to be moving to small group time, right? It's not based on that. And if you really are creating a responsive schedule, I don't think it has to be an either or. You can meet the relationship and, set the expectations for the classroom. But I think a lot of times people think that they're in contrast with each other.
Or making a lot of that optional, right? Like, when I was directing a preschool in California, they were like, oh, I said, why don't we just put the snack out while we're doing this open play? And kids know that they have until this time if they're hungry and thirsty to get some. Yeah. And after that, we're going to pull it away. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, then when they're ready, they'll stop what they're doing. They'll eat. But we're not going to all eat as a group. That's the trade-off. They're going to eat when they're ready, and they were like, we tried it and it was a magical, right? The kids just, instead of, some of them in groups of 2 or 3 would go together, get the snack, eat together, and then get back to play. One kid wasn't really hungry and his mom says he doesn't always eat snacks. So he waited till the last 5 minutes and he downed some water and he was good to go, right? But like, we didn't force them to stop what they were doing on our time and come over and have snack because we're telling you now is the time to have snack. Just put the snack out there and just know that, like, just give them a warning, 5 more minutes until we pull the snack, right? Like, and so I think it's that just idea. Yeah, you could just go have story time. Does everyone need to come? No, I'm going to go over here and read a story. Would anyone like to join me? Great. No? Okay, then I will just read it to myself, right? And just let kids decide if they want to do that. And I think that's what the challenge is, saying you can do all of those things. You can have small group, but can you just leave it open to those who want to do it so that those who are already engaged in something else can continue to engage in that? And I've seen that in different places. And you'll see kids all of a sudden, when you stop forcing circle time, how many come to your gathering because it was an open choice for them to decide to come.
And because it's an exciting time. They want to be part of a community. They want to come together with their friends. And so if they also, like, I don't know, I've been in a lot of circle times in preschool classrooms that I don't even want to be there. So like, I can only imagine that the children don't want to. And so like, if it's a time that's meaningful to them, they'll want to come. But like, I don't know, like if I were a child in some of the classes that I was in and I taught, like, I don't know, like I probably wouldn't want to be a part of that either.
Yeah. But there's just so much about why we just are so afraid to give children that freedom, right? That space to just make those decisions for themselves. And I think it's part of, again, we're just so, everything has to be on schedule and calendar, and you have to do this by this and this and that. And then when you ask why, and when you step back from all that, you realize none of it matters. Like it doesn't matter if they do time at 9 a.m. or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't matter if they do it at all, right? But I see more people wanting that and wanting to try it. And so that's really good. They just need the support. They want to know they're not alone. So having a network of other teachers who are on this journey with you, I think is so important.
I think, hearing what you're both are saying, thinking about sort of that, Christina, that circle time that you wouldn't want to be a part of. I think back to, we were talking to some educators, some early educators who talked about sort of the professional development we've been doing with them, which has been focused on, okay, they've taken videos of play and they're going to tell us about what's going on there. And they're talking about their own kids. They're talking about their own insights. They're talking about the things that are meaningful to them. And so they compare that to other professional developments, what they call like the one and done, where they have a handout and they're supposed to read it. And it sounds like it's just like a staff meeting. And
here's
it's like,
how you make
that circle time you don't want to be at, right? Yeah. And so they're doing that. And then when they're coming together with their children, they're looking at videos and those kids want to be there. They're talking about things that were meaningful to the children. The children are talking about the things that they were doing. The whole meeting is centered around the fact that A, the teachers have created a space for them to have those experiences, and B, the orientation of the teacher is to valuing and understanding that, and C, they're coming together to talk about that. So, when teachers come together and are having those meaningful, reflective experiences, when their voices are being seen and heard, right? Where it's about their insights, their own children, like the awesome things that they're doing. It also, like, they mirror each other. What's happening in the classroom with the children is what's happening amongst staff. And so one of the biggest challenges we've seen structurally is that if teachers don't have that time to come together, like really have that time to both plan and to reflect together, they need the time to deal with like the practicalities of their job, right? But also just that time where they can talk about what's meaningful to them, what they're seeing. that's kind of a key, that's a really key ingredient, that it's really hard for teachers to be on the same page together, to be there for children, if they don't have that, if they're not respected by their systems to be professionals that need that time to come together. And we see that a lot in primary schools. I mean, I'm a big union person, and it's like awesome that the primary school teachers, secondary school teachers have unions that are making sure they have that time. Early educators are often not seen as needing that, right? Oh, well, you're just doing childcare, like changing diapers, wiping noses,
Or
whatever.
like
Like the kids are
they're just
playing. Like, why do you
or
need
they're
to plan?
just
What do you need to plan?
playing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you need to plan?
Yeah.
They're just playing.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything.
I mean, it sounds like you're almost suggesting that what we want for kids, teachers need to experience too, right? So when in Anji, we're talking about joy and love and risk and engagement and reflection, I think you're saying teachers also need joy, love, risk, engagement, and reflection, right?
Yeah.
It, right? Everything we do in education a lot of times comes from our own experiences. So you're right, if teachers aren't experiencing in this, they're not going to value it. How are the children going to value it, right? They're not going to value it an hour-long reflection on their play if they don't see everyone else in it. And teachers can't evaluate it without the time. And so, yeah, it's so true. And everyone's always said that. And then we the systems just replace everything. Even if you were fortunate to be in a unionized school district that got a PLC, what did they do? They brought in me, an outside person, to come into your PLC and talk to you about nothing you want to talk about. I remember some of the teachers were like, well, what do you want to talk about? Because they told me these were the topics you wanted to talk about. And the teachers gave me a whole different list. And I salvaged our PLC grant by focusing on what they asked and not what the people who hired me there, because they have two different agendas. And I'm like, this is your only time to be together, and I'm not going to come in as an outsider and make this worse. So it did get better the rest of the year because I took the topics from them and then explored it with them. And they're great. Teachers are so eager. I've done 2 now, like professional development grant funded projects. And what I realized, when you explain to the teachers what it was about and why, they already know it's important, because you ask them like, well, what's important in a learning environment? And they list all these things. And then you show them that those things are what the tool is measuring. And they're like, oh, no one ever told me that. Well, yeah, then let's do the tool, because that's exactly what's important. And then we have these great conversations, and they want to improve and they want to practice. But most of the time they just get a score. They're not told anything except you're not doing good, or, and they're left kind of less fulfilled. So yeah, there's a direct relation to what we give teachers and how we treat them, and then what they're also able to do and how they're able to treat their students, right? And so
you're talking about, the relationship between them and their administration, right? Like, is there even a relationship? Like, does the administration even know what that teacher is capable of doing if they're just coming in, giving them a score and walking out? That's not a conversation.
They're looking for particular things, right? They're just looking to see one thing, because all that matters is that standard is on the board, not that anybody knows what it means and anyone's unpacking it and anyone's thinking about what does it mean for these children. And so, and it's difficult because there are some teachers with great administration and they're trying, but they also have someone above them telling them it's got to be this way. And so this chain of command. But more than that, I think it's just this societal mindset about, again, what are our purpose? What is our reason for being together, right? Like, is the care just custodial? Are we just watching kids and keeping them safe? Or are we seeing care as a part of development, right? And that this is how we ensure proper development, by providing caring relationships. I mentioned being in Tijuana at this play thing, and it was a refugee site for a nest, they call it, for refugee kids for play. And even the adults who are volunteering there, it's like we can't help but feel, oh, but we gotta think about when they finally get into the United States and they finally get into school, they're gonna be behind, right? These are good, caring adults who want the best for these children, but they are forced to think that these kids are already going to be behind academically because they don't speak English as a first language. And so they're focused on that. And it's like, how do we shift that thinking and say, no, right now, while they're living in this horrible refugee camp, we need to focus on making every day today a good day. And that is going to carry you over to when you're finally in the United States and you're dealing with school. But we all get caught up in that, right? And it's not just people who don't have children's best interests at heart. These people do, but they're also bilingual. They know what it's like to not come to a country speaking the dominant language. And they just worry about these kids, what they need down the line. And so I feel like we have to shift and say, we need to focus on today, right now, their childhood. Their childhood needs to be the best childhood. And that thinks about every day, what are we doing to make it the best day today? And that's a hard shift for a lot of people who are so much worried about the future and getting them ready. And I fall victim to that too all the time. But then I remember, but it's about right now. It's about today and in this moment, and what does this child need right now?
Well, it's thinking about you want, like, those nests sound like schools for them, right? And so, like, how do you get those children to love school and want to go to school every day, so that even when it is hard, they're like, no, this is a place I want to be at. I know I feel supported. I know the people who care about me. And so, like, how do you set that foundation up for, okay, yeah, the reality is it is probably going to be tricky for you, right? Because you won't know the language, but how can you set them up to be like, okay, even if things are hard, there, it is a supportive environment where people will care about me and help me succeed. And I can figure it, you can figure out the other pieces, like, once you get to that point.
Yeah, and the good thing is they all wanted to be there. They came running in, smiling, happy, and just really wanted to be in that space. And the older kids do want to do like work because they want to practice those skills they were learning before they ended up in another country living as a refugee, right? So they want those experiences, but yeah, it's definitely like the support's going to be there, but I think we need to like focus. School is not about just preparation for life, right? School is life right now, and childhood is life like right now, and you can't get it back, right? And it's limited. You have more time as an adult than you do as a child. So like, how do we really focus in on childhood and what's needed right now, I think is really key. And even when the environment is, it's inviting and it's friendly and it's where kids want to be, but then it's what the expectations that you put on sometimes of what that environment is supposed to do. And if play becomes a tool to advance, educational achievement, then we've lost sight, right? Like that can't be what it's for, right? To prepare you to do better in life. Like, no, it's actually your body's natural way of engaging in the world and being, and it's gifting you with all the things you need in this moment, right? And how do we get back to that understanding, I think is really important to think about.
I think if up to the age of 8, maybe even beyond that, if our only concern is a child safe, loved, joyful, taking risks to solve problems, like believing in themselves, that's going to set them up to be really high achieving when they're encountering problems in an abstract sense or on paper. And maybe they don't, maybe they choose to do something else, solve other problems that are more important and that they are equally valuable for society and for themselves. Because I think sort of one of the challenges that we see is when you have a degree of certainty about where a child should be at a certain point, it's based on research that's happened a long time ago. And so it's hard to update. It's hard to make that constantly sort of updated. It's something we encounter when we're working with programs that are federally funded or have federal mandates, when there's a really well-intentioned, a real reason to want to create a certain standard, right? So that children so that really terrible things happening to children aren't receiving funding, right? Like you have to have some sort of standard, but then you start sort of cementing things that are changing, right? Pedagogy is oftentimes not keeping up with science or with research. And so one of the things for us, which I know is a little bit of a controversial subject, it's something that we see, in every program, is thinking about social emotional learning, thinking about trauma-informed practice and care. Again, thinking about the incredibly important intentions behind that and those needs, but seeing how it becomes kind of standardized and then implemented away from where children really are, what they're feeling, what values they bring to the table rather than their deficits. I was looking at, ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. There's this checklist, and that was developed as a larger population monitoring tool. It was never intended to be something as a diagnostic for an individual. It was never meant to use on an individual to determine educational interventions or even medical interventions. But it's become the basis for like, okay, we're going to do this educational thing because you have a certain score. And so again, it's hard to make changes to big systems that are already moving, because we've kind of just assumed that where a child is now is where they're going to be at a future date, and that future date things are going to be the way that we expect them to be. So that's a challenge, right? How do you embrace that uncertainty? How do you step back and say it's okay if you're not learning, because I know if I do step back you will learn? Like that can be a hard sell.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because I teach ACEs and the book and everything, but I think it's so important for my students to understand that yes, those 10 ACEs are very individual family based. It's like trauma only happens at the individual family level. And so we have to broaden our what is an ACE? What is an adverse childhood experience? Poverty, right?
Yeah.
Racism, like all of these systems, right, are ACEs. And we have to remember that, like, race-based traumatic stress is real, right? And children can experience it vicariously. So just hearing about the racist incidents that are happening can cause race-based traumatic stress in a child, right? Lots of, poverty that includes houselessness and not having, parents who are able to work and all those things. So we need to get out of just individual, yes, someone in your family hurt you and that's trauma, but no, trauma is also caused by policies, right? And in school, you're either going to exacerbate that trauma and make it worse, or you're going to mitigate against it, right? And so for me, the key thing out of the ACEs research is that mitigating factors like adults or things like that can really change the trajectory, right? So how are we saying, okay, schools, yes, trauma is happening, and it's happening at the individual and family level. It's happening at the macro level. It's happening sometimes in the school, like the curriculum can cause violence against students, right? And so how are you then dealing with that instead of just saying, here are the warning signs? And, a lot of the SEL stuff was, tech trying to be like, no, we can do SEL. We can do SEL online. And then it backfired because somehow that got caught up in the whole CRT attack and stuff too, which is, but yeah, the idea that you can help kids do social emotional online is just so funny to me, because it's about social emotional, like things that require
connecting with other people. Yeah.
So hey, no, I can make an app for that. And I think people are starting to see that, and they really don't understand, what does it mean to promote social and emotional learning? But it's that idea of caring and helping children process big emotions, right? God forbid a child has a big emotion in public, and the way people are just like this child is not entitled to this moment right now and this feeling right now, and it's why though? Why? What would happen if you just wow, you are really upset. I'm going to stay here with you until you're not upset, but I feel you, and just let them process that moment of being upset, and then they're ready to move on. But it's no, we want to just take it away. We want to just say, no, you're not entitled to feel that way.
I was actually in public, and this one dad was letting his 2-year-old have their feelings, and everyone was kind of staring at him, and I'm like, you're doing a great job. And he just looked at me, he's like, thank you. And I'm like, no, it's totally okay. And again, I think also when we are in a position to give feedback to the adult that is letting those children have whatever feelings they're having, to just give them hey, you're doing a great thing. It's fine. You're not here to save the child. It's fine for them to have these big emotions. I think that sometimes we need to just be there for one another too, in that way too, because I think it's just so taboo to this child's crying, I'm going to run over and save the day and make them feel better. But maybe they need to cry it out. I know sometimes I need to cry.
And as an adult, the last thing someone can do is tell you to get over it, and you don't need to be feeling that right now. Sometimes we just need that, and all the effort and energy you would spend trying to curtail it is just a waste of time. If you would just say, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just going to sit here with you. You're not going to let them hurt themselves or hurt somebody else, but pouting in a corner is pouting. I had kids with me this summer, and one of them, he was kind of upset, and I just let him pout in the car. When I tell him, stop being angry, you have every right to be angry. I was disappointed too. None of us thought that was going to happen. You be angry about it. And he was totally fine. He got his 30 minutes of pouting out of the way, and we moved on, right? But I can't take that from him and say, you don't have a right to that emotion, right? And I think that's a challenge that we're seeing. But you're right, letting parents know, right? I have friends posted a video of their daughter, and they said she's not walking yet, but she wanted to climb. So she climbed on top of the table, and then she climbed on top of the chair on top of the table. And, dad's right behind her, but they had to post a little thing in the video that said, we're not soliciting commenting on our parenting right now. It wasn't about how dare you do that, but it's let our child do this in the moment. And I was yes, thank you for just letting this child do this in the moment. She needed to stand on top of the chair, on top of the table, and know that she could. And one parent's filming and one parent's behind her, and she's totally safe. And even if she tumbles, she's got parents right there to catch her. She's got to understand that it is unstable and gravity is real. You might take trouble, but someone's going to catch you, and that's okay. That's part of the learning experience, right? And so, supporting those parents, I think, is super important, because when they don't get a lot of support, everyone's quick to tell you you're doing this wrong, but no one really tells you when you're doing it right? When you're empathizing with your kid and allowing them to express a range of things, even if other people don't want to hear it, then don't listen.
Exactly. Walk away.
Yeah.
We with one, we're at the beginning of a new school year last year, there was a child in a class we were working with who, beginning of the year, lots of really big feelings, kids were playing, he would, he would throw things, he would do things that like weren't really acceptable in a classroom setting, right? For it to kind of progress in a way that was happy and healthy for everyone, right? And so our conversation with the teacher was, okay, well, he needs a relationship with you, right? Like, it's okay for him to not play. Like, don't worry about him playing. He needs you to be with him. And so she really focused on, she could see like what the antecedents were. She knew what was going to happen that was going to lead to that. And so she was there for him. And so it wasn't oh, well, it's happening, stop doing that. It was, oh, like, and it wasn't like, oh, I see something's going to be wrong. It was like, oh, like, I'm just going to be near to you, or, hey, like, come over here, we'll hang out and like, we'll talk. Right. And what I noticed is that when we looked at the videos of that child in play at the end of the year, playing just beautifully, independently, building with other children, right? What I saw in that video is his communication style was still sort of brusque. Like, he would talk like in a way that wasn't like, oh, please do this. He would be more like kind of like directive, less, what we think of as quote unquote polite, right? And I could see in many situations how a teacher seeing that child now would even come in and say like, oh, that's not how we ask for things. Oh, like, let's use our inside voice here. But what I saw was all of the other children knew who that child was. And they were responding to him as if he was talking to them politely, because they knew that's like, they were embracing and accepting him. I think in part because they saw a teacher and embrace and accept him. And they saw that having a relationship with him was about him being a person. It wasn't about the way he was talking. And so not losing sight of the fact that children are sophisticated, they understand feelings, are really good at reading people, but also just how we treat, of course, people as adults is going to affect how children treat each other. And how much more powerful is it that the children see what that child's needs are and like respond to his needs and hear him and don't judge him and know that he can be part of their play. It's sort of a different paradigm in a lot of
It
ways.
really is. And like you said, the kids know. We hear those kids who learn to police other kids' behavior. They get that from teachers, right?
Yep.
They know. And so, yeah, it's about modeling that. And if you model that kind of empathy and support, then the students are going to do it too, And even I remember teaching kindergarten, and students were, one little boy would just kind of stray from the circle, and I was done chasing him down, like stray away. He was being real quiet, and he just kind of strayed away. And one kid tried to say something, and the other kid was like, "Let him be. He's not bothering nobody." And like those were the exact words about to come out of my mouth, and she knew it, so she said it real quick because I was seriously like, he's not bothering anybody. Can we just let him be? Because I don't want to lose. Like, I was forced to keep the rest of you all in this circle, and that's going to slip away, right? If I tend to him really quickly. But yeah, once kids understand that shared expectation, right? Oh, I'm going to do this for him, and I'm going to do it for you, and I'm going to do it for you. Then they're like, they come to expect it, and then they start doing that as well too. So yeah, I totally agree with that. It's so important that how we engage with children who are having those big emotions and those challenging behaviors, and giving them what they need, so that other students say, when it's your turn and you need something, we are also going to give you what you need. And that's the caring, right? That's what we're all here for. Then you even see the students coming up to the teachers trying to give them what they need, right? Because then they catch it, it's contagious, all of that caring and empathy and all the stuff that we're modeling.
Yeah, it's that relationships-based environment and like really being responsive. And I'd love to share with you, Denisha, kind of the presentations we've been doing, like starting out the year, like how to set up the classroom. Part of it is like, how do you push away all the stuff that is not necessary, right? Like, what do I not need to do as a teacher, right? Like, ideally, it's like, I cannot worry about learning. Like, I cannot worry about having the circle time last 15 minutes. It's okay if we don't call it circle time, it's a group gathering and it's 3 minutes. And if the kids don't want to be there for 3 minutes, they can leave and whatever, right? Like, how do you push away all that stuff that isn't necessary? Because then you're stripping it back to those authentic relationships, right? That you're describing too. It's like, because responding to somebody's needs and seeing them as a person is it's like an authentic way of relating to somebody. And play, right, is a way to see where children are, what their need, like children need to play, but it's also who they really are. They're showing you who they really are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of just, letting go. And I think really creating that environment where teachers can let go, where they're welcome to, where they're asked to really think about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're in that environment. Sometimes people say that's what they want, but they really don't want that. That's just what they're saying. And then supporting them when they're in their environment, right? One of my classes, we read the book, These Schools Belong to Me and You by Deborah Meyer and Emily Gasoy. And Emily has a great chapter when she's teaching at Mission Hill School, and she's not supposed to be using like the regular schedule, but she can't really change her approach. And so she's doing it. And so like Deborah's like pushing her. So it's even that, like when you are going to give someone that opportunity and freedom to do things differently, you got to support them through that, because we're still trained on what we experienced and what we've been doing. And what you've been doing is compartmentalizing learning into 30-minute discrete subject time. And here they're trying to say, no, don't do that. But you have to learn how to make that shift. Again, your role is now shifting. And so what is the role of the teachers, the educators in this new environment? And I think, fleshing that out is super important, and showing how that's valuable, right? I think the observing and the documenting is such an important role that we're not really utilizing enough, right? Like, it's not like, I don't think students should have to perform their learning for us on standardized tests. We, as the educator, should be documenting that learning as the observer, and so that we are the ones saying, yes, I know they can.
It is our job to know where the children in our classroom are, right? It's not
and
their job.
No, you ask teachers, and they can tell you how the kids are doing, and can tell you which ones are going to be able to do this, because they know, because they're smart and they're trained, and they're educated. But the systems in place don't allow them to use that knowledge. It's like, no, we want some objective, tests created by, people who write test questions or who don't know our children really well. And it's more like a game of gotcha. Like, we're not really trying to see what the children can do. We're trying to see what the child can't do. Like, no, gotcha. They can't actually solve that obscure question in this obscure context, right? Because we made it that way. And so, I think a lot of it is, and really getting parents. I think we forget a lot that parents are under the same pressures as everyone else. They're afraid that if their kid's not reading by the time they're in kindergarten, then they're going to be doomed to a life of, unfulfilled responsibilities and unable to like tap into their potential. And so how do we push back against the fear that they have that, no, your kid's not reading by kindergarten, that's totally fine and natural. It doesn't happen like that in most countries, right? But is your kid happy? Is your kid taking risk? Are they assessing their situation? Are they reflecting on what they're doing? Are they engaging in the process with others, right? Those are the skills we really want to remind parents, but it's got to be like a complete circle of buy-in, right? The teachers, the parents, the families, the administrators, and the children together saying, no, this is the experience that we want to create. And so I'm hopeful. I know people are doing it, not in as many public school settings I would like, some are, but in a lot of our private play-based programs that are out there, like Keisha's program and other folks, they're doing that, and they're making that the norm, and they're not worried about first grade and kindergarten, right? They're not focusing on, they're focusing on right now. The time is now to really give these kids what they need. And so we hope that can become contagious as well too, and other people can see that's the way to go, especially now that we're dealing with this pandemic. More now than ever, kids need to they need to feel normal again, like they're back in school, and it's still so awkward, and I don't think we're really attending to all the big emotions that the young kids are feeling these days being back in these buildings, and the worries that they still have, because they know what's happening. They know there's other variants happening, and they're not vaccinated, and older people can, they're worried about all of these things. So how are we attending to those needs right now, making sure that they feel like those needs are met, I think is really important.
I think the revolutionary aspect of your work, the revolutionary aspect of kind of this endeavor of true play, Anji play, is both the belief that children, like the knowledge, the experience that something else is possible. I think part of it is it's also possible in organized settings. It's possible in a school. We don't have to tear down the schools. We just have to kind of change what's going on inside. And I think that I think that's, honestly, I feel like that's almost kind of like the good news, is that we're not saying you don't have to tear down the schools, right? Just like how do we rethink what learning looks like? How do we reprioritize the experiences that children are having? For teachers of young children, like how do we say like their planning time, their reflection time is important? I think the more, incredible scholars like you are advocating for that, are working with teachers before they go into the field, but also as we're showing the research, right? Like, I think for us, we go into programs where early educators, and these are public programs, have that time to reflect. The quality of their programming is so much higher. Like their turnover is so much lower. Like those are articulable, documentable things. And so I think we just fight for that, right? We just make that a priority and try to prove it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to tear down the schools, but if we center children and their families and their needs, I think we tear down those systems that are not centered.
Yes.
And that's what we need to get
Yes.
at. There are systems in place. So we just shift the center. No, the center is not the standards. No, the center is not the testing scores. No, the center is not the achievement gap, which is the racist idea. No, the center is the children and by extension, their families. Put them at the center, and then you're going to tear down everything that doesn't serve them well. And a lot of the things we have weren't designed to serve the children and the families well. They're designed to serve the system, right? The system that wants to sort kids and predestine them to different outcomes, right? And so I think that's what we're fighting against. And yeah, I see a lot of, it is the good part, because there are revolutions are happening, right? People are, whether it's a true play revolution or global play revolution or just enough is enough. Like people are just like, I think one thing we're getting out of this pandemic, I see posts and it's like, oh, jobs are telling people they have to go back to work, and people know there's no good reason for that. They're not, okay, guess what? There are a lot of job openings. Like I will go work somewhere else. I don't have to. And so I think we're seeing that in New York City. I mean, people were pushing, parents and teachers were pushing for a remote option, and a lot of parents signed their kid, took their kids out of school, because you got to hurt them in the pockets. And when those kids don't register, that's money that the state is not getting for that child. And parents don't want to do it, but they're going to push them, right? So I think that's that activism we're seeing happening around the people who are demanding and wanting change, right? We're going to see that continue. And we need to nourish it and support those parents who are making tough decisions right now, but it's the best option for them. They're just not ready to send their kids back into this environment in these schools without a plan in place, without anything. And so we hope that'll keep going until they get what they want, and we change the system as much as we can.
Well, thank you, Denisha.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate all the work you're doing. And just one last plug, Black Lives Matter at School. Buy the book.
Here it is.
It's available
And
on paperback.
We have the children's book, the coloring book, What We Believe. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So we have lots of great books out about the movement. So please support.
And we'll get the links up there. So yeah, please. Support that
I'll get you
work.
guys links as well.
Thank you so much. And I think we're going to be joined again by Dr. Peter Mangione on September 28th. That's right. That'll be an interesting conversation. That's going to be wide ranging, similar to Dr. Jones. Was it the True Play Conference? Frequent visitor to Anji. We'll have a lot to share. So
yeah, I look forward to hearing more. Yeah, I look forward to hearing more about Peter's work too.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know he's a big fan of yours. So fantastic. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you again soon.